Last week's State of the Union address was a stark reminder that gridlock in Washington is far from over. From the battle for raising the minimum wage to reducing greenhouse gases, many expect the political impasse between the White House and Congress to continue until at least 2016. However, that isn't to say that each party stands united against the other. For example, on the issue of immigration, there's a growing rift between mainstream Republicans who want to block immigration reform and another group of Republicans who are more open to reforms.
What this reflects is really a split in the Republican Party that has been there for a long time, but we're seeing become much more acute right now because of the rise of the Tea Party, because of the rise of a nativist wing of the Republican Party that is more interested in using anti-immigrant and nativist sentiment to appeal to a very conservative part of the electorate than it is interested in doing what the other part of the Republican Party has historically done, which is basically serve the interests of business.
David Bacon is an author and immigrant rights activist who spent over 2 decades as a labor organizer. He says that Republicans in the Midwest especially, like Governors Rick Snyder of Michigan and John Kasich of Ohio, have opened up to reforms in an effort to introduce a new pool of labor to an area of the country whose economy has been struggling.
So here we have these governors in these Midwestern states. And remember, Rick Snyder was an executive of Gateway Corporation, which is a big computer manufacturer. The computer industry, the high-tech industry, is a big advocate for immigration reform that will give them guest worker programs, essentially a supply of workers coming into the United States on work visas that guarantee that they will be a very low-wage workforce, and that if people don't like the conditions or the wages that they're being asked to work for, that they will essentially have to leave because they have to work in order to remain in the United States.
The new pool of workers is not unskilled. It's students and skilled laborers who are being offered a path to citizenship.
The approach of this more economically interested approach of legislators and governors in the Midwest who want to have more highly skilled immigrants, and note that they're not talking about undocumented laborers. They're talking about specifically highly skilled immigrants and increasing the quotas for those highly skilled immigrants. But there is an economic interest in this, which is about revitalizing the economy of these depressed states.
Sujata Fernandez is an author and sociology professor at Queens College and the Graduate Center at CUNY. Like Bacon, she says that it's impossible to fully understand the immigration debate without looking at it as a class issue.
It's part of a class project, and it's the same class project that comprehensive immigration reform has been, which is a Faustian bargain between, on the one hand, greater enforcement, greater border security, more deportation for those who are not deemed deserving immigrants, in a payoff for the social mobility of a very small number of immigrants, those either students or people, highly skilled laborers who can get special visas to come here. And it's those people that this kind of reform is targeted towards, which is not the vast majority of undocumented immigrants in this country, but it's a very small number.
That view is reflected in the work that Michigan's Office of New Americans has done to recruit what they call international talent.
You've heard some of this information before. We're kind of, I think, overlapping with some of our statistics to kind of really hammer home the idea that our international talent is really important for us to retain from an economic development perspective. So more than 60% of the Michigan engineering PhDs who graduate are foreign-born, more than 60%. And for every 100 foreign-born advanced degree graduates, 262 U.S. jobs are created. So that's pretty significant. These statistics show the importance of retaining our international talent.
Karen Filippi is the office's deputy director. She told Politico last week that the focus of their immigration policy is more on economic impact than on social justice.
I think that Ms. Filippi is being quite honest in talking about what the motivation for this position taken by this wing of the Republican Party. And what she's saying is really that it's not about votes. It's really not about winning the election in 2016. It's about economics. It is about ensuring that there is a labor force that is available to certain industries, to certain businesses in the United States at a price that employers want to pay. So what she's talking about is what they would call economic competitiveness, which basically boils down to ensuring that companies can make profits by keeping their costs, especially their labor costs, down.
Bacon says that this growing position on immigration is, in the end, about regulating the movement of workers from Latin America to the United States in a way that is profitable to business first.
They see immigration as being a source of labor, especially a source of cheap labor. But they want to make sure that that labor comes into the United States in a vulnerable situation. In other words, people who are not likely to organize unions and agitate for higher wages, and also that it comes in a situation in which the actual wage level is low. And so we have a conflict inside the Republican Party between that wing, the business wing, or you might say the low-wage wing, and the anti-immigrant nativist wing. Neither one of them are good news for immigrants themselves, because on the one hand, one part of the Republican Party would like to see people deported in very large numbers, even larger than what's been taking place over the last few years. And the other wing of the Republican Party simply looks at people as being a very vulnerable, cheap wage labor force and wants to keep them that way.
For The Real News, Thomas Hedges, Washington.